This is a message that was released by Wargaming. This kind of addresses a lot of the stuff that's been going on and a lot of the stuff they've been working on in the background, although they are still working on even more stuff in the background, and this does not fully convey all of it. For instance, the community contributor program, they're continuing to work on, and other stuff, which, how much other stuff, I don't know, but I mean, this hits a lot of the high points as far as what's currently going on, so woot. Dear players, lately a lot of you have been upset with various incidents, our decisions, as well as the general state of things in the game and community. Before we continue, we want to apologize to all of you, players, content creators, moderators, testers, other volunteers, to those who support us and those disappointed with us. Everything that happens within the game and the community is our responsibility, and we are sorry we let the situation come to its current state. We want to take this opportunity to be more transparent about how we will take actions to improve our internal processes and our relationship with you. It will be a long read. You will see items of different scales and with different times required to see results. No doubt more news and announcements will follow, so please don't treat this as a final plan and the ultimate solution to everything. Instead, please treat it as a list of things we're currently working on and a way to show our intentions to make the gaming community a better place. Please note, it is not comprehensive, as many other measures are revolving around internal processes. I did actually watch Mr. G. I think he read that and was like, oh yeah, please note that none of this is actually what... He misread this. I think he said none of this is... He read this as like none of this is binding. No. When it says, please note that this is... it is not comprehensive, that means it doesn't cover everything. As in, there's more shit that they're still working on that they'll be putting out information on, or at least working on internally. Comprehensive means it covers everything, and this does not cover everything, it covers the high points. Monetization. World of Warships is a free-to-play title following the games as a service concept with substantial monthly updates and a constant evolutionary cycle. To support this model, we rely on a multitude of monetization tactics considered to be standard practice in the industry. While we believe it's unreasonable to expect our internal monetization strategy to discuss our monetization strategies in all but the most general terms, this is business critical information, we do understand that there are specific details that are a cause of concern for some of you. We will address them as best we can below. Random mechanics. As a business, we always follow laws and comply with new regulations as they appear. Therefore, our position on containers and random bundles is always consistent with government's decision on this matter, and will keep being so. In some cases, we will even try to work ahead of industry practices. We are aware that there are slowly progressing trends to regulate the digital space more and more, to catch up with technical solutions and business models built on them. With that in mind, we appreciate your feedback and commit to the following. From now on, for all ships, if they are distributed via containers or random bundles, there will be an alternative way to obtain them. Methods may vary and may include time gating, i.e. early access or time-delayed offers, direct purchases, completing in-game activities, etc. This is something that I put it into the CC Discord back with the Missouri gig, which is, if you're going to do it, give us a buyout option. Give us a direct buy option. Give us an option not to fuck with it, which I think is important. And they've committed to that. From now on, for all ships, if they're distributed via containers or random bundles, there will be an alternative way to obtain them. When I read time gating, part of me wondered if that means that it would only be for a window of time. Meaning, like, the Missouri is available once you complete the mission for, like, a week or two or something that you could direct buy, and then I assume that goes away. As long as it's reasonable, that's all that I care about. And as long as it's an option that's available while the containers and random bundles are available, I would be okay with that. If these are available, for instance, for, you know, a year, but there's only a time-gated thing, which is like for a week or two, and then it's gone, that would suck. Hopefully that's not what this indicates. I don't expect it would, but anyway, it's just thoughts on the matter. Drop rates. We plan to publish all drop rates for containers and random bundles, and are already working on it. It will take some time, but our hard commitment is that it will happen over the course of next year. This was further elaborated on in the Q&A session, as well as in a post done by Sub-Octavian. Basically, when they're going to unveil their thing, they're going to do it across all regions at the same time in the same way. They're going to figure out a way to implement it, and implement it at the same time with consistency. And evidently, China has a lot of regulations on what they do and how you present information. Therefore, it might be easier to present that information in places that are not China. But since they do sell in China, that's probably going to be one of the biggest roadblocks in how they can get the information out, I guess. So, long story short, they expect it to be done by the end of 2022, next year. I don't think they expect it to take a year, but they're not going to give you a timeline because they don't know how long it's going to take, because they're going to have to go through all sorts of legal shit, as well as figuring out how to present it and implement it and yada yada. So rather than start off half-assed and just throw a bunch of numbers at you, they're going to do it officially like. So yeah, there's going to be some time, but it's going to be a thing they do. Return of the Missouri. The initial concept of the event was perceived negatively, and we should have known better. The case was a learned lesson for us, and we added an alternative way to purchase the ship. We're also addressing the situation with the ship's earnings to make sure that those who owned Missouri before 0.10.7 will on average receive not less than before the changes to the ship's economics. We're grateful for the battles you played. They helped us collect sufficient data. This amounts to data which allows us to add a plus 10% bonus to the Special Missouri Combat Mission from 20 to 30%. Additionally, we will issue appropriate amount of credits to all those affected players as a sign of appreciation. Details will be published in the dev blog separately. I don't have any information about issuing appropriate amount of credits, but I did ask, when is this going live? And a dev blog should happen soon, TM. So I don't think it's not going to be anything that you're going to be waiting on for forever. Soon is more soon than soon TM, I would say. Summer sale. Unfortunately, we made a translation mistake in a sensitive description. We fixed it ASAP, and to protect you from such mistakes in the future, we will add additional checks and approvals to our internal processes. If anything like this happens again, we will offer refunds to all of the affected players. We did it before, and we will do it again to make sure you are compensated. We will also pay more attention to the positioning of such events. For example, positioning? I think that means more descriptioning. But for example, many of you stated the term sale suggests direct discounts on in-game items as opposed to getting bonus stuff for buying things. So that's why I'm thinking that's actually should be like descriptioning instead of positioning. So they're working on language, but stuff still gets translated. Age ratings. We've already added disclaimers about in-game purchases with random items to our PEGI rating. We're also in touch with other rating organizations to adjust our ratings everywhere in a consistent way. While our game was never popular among minors, and we adhere to legislation in all countries where we will publish World of Warships, we plan to go beyond what is required of us by laws, and we are working on our own in-game measures to additionally protect children who interact with our game. We will share more details on this point once we are ready to announce them. As far as this one, it has been said, there is a video. Let me see if I can find this real quick. There's a video from the ESRB, of the ESRB, which was put out by NoClip. And evidently, they did not ever, and I mean ever, they did not provide information about that. I will have to ask about Egg in Court. I really do want some kind of response to that if we can get one. But to the ESRB thing. So NoClip is a documentary company on YouTube that is game affiliated. And they were allowed to go into the ESRB and talk with them about their processes and such. For those that don't know what the ESRB, or by extension PEGI, which I think is a different rating board, but still same vein. Doom came out, and Doom has blood and demons and shit, and there's other games that freaked parents out. So rather than wait for the government to come up with some completely incompetent board that has no idea about what games are, or people that play games and just go, Satan's bad, and then like throw out random legislation regarding it. The games industry went, we have to get our shit together before people try to, regulate our shit. And hopefully, we can do it more competently than people that don't know can. So the ESRB was created to give age ratings. So they look at this, they get the game, they look at the game, they see what's in the game, and then they stamp a rating on it. So like World of Warships has some violence, because there's shells, it has some explosions, but there's no nudity, there's no adult-oriented content, it's just ships fighting other ships. It's not that big of a deal. So the PEGI rating of 7 isn't so that they can market to 7-year-olds. The PEGI rating of 7 is because if you have a 7-year-old kid that has 2 little toy boats and he's imagining them shooting each other and blowing themselves up, or blowing each other up, it's age appropriate. It's not that big of a deal. A 3-year-old could play with the boats in a bathtub, imagining that they're shooting each other. It's not something that's going to scar a child for life. It's a really basic game. Or like Tetris. If you added in-game purchases to Tetris, it's still Tetris or Minesweeper. Like, this is not a high-end crazy thing that's going to scar a kid. That being said, you don't want a child to be in a situation where they're going to click buttons that are going to start transactions and whatever. But realistically, if the account is owned by an adult and that adult happens to let their child play it, you would assume that the adult would be paying attention to what's going on the account and making sure that the child is not doing random shit and buying stuff and becoming, causing financial problems. So, anyway, they've submitted to the PEGI board. I think they're expecting to go up to PEGI 12 because it has some in-game purchases or whatever. Maybe they'll give a shit. They may not. They may actually look at it and go, no, the game is still fine. The in-game purchases, whatever. It'll be what it is. They did say that they would not be excited about getting a PEGI 18 because when you start labeling stuff as adult-only content, then it gets harder to market adult-only content, as in, like, it might be harder to make an ad on a website or something. So, like a game site that is available for teenagers to read. Well, if there's an adult-only game, could you put that on PC Gamer easily? Or would you have to pay more or go through additional hoops, So that they probably care about, but I don't see why it would happen. Feedback. One of the main topics we want to address is how your feedback influences the game. Oh, like Gamescom, yeah. So they wouldn't have their game on the show floor of Gamescom where you'd have people walking around looking at, children's games and teenager games and other stuff. It would have to be floor restricted so that only adults are going to interact with only adult content. So yeah, it would be awkward in that sense. So yeah. Okay, so feedback. One of the main topics we want to address is how your feedback influences the game. Regrettably, it was not always clear how we use certain types of feedback and where it fits into our decision-making process. We've always taken into account, we've always taken it, into account, but looking back, we see that in some cases it was not balanced well enough against other equally important sources of information. Large volumes of data and the team's creative vision of the game, for instance. We want to change this situation and make sure we pay more direct attention to your suggestions and opinions while also giving you more insight into how our decisions are made. Things we are considering, how the decisions are made. Things we are considering and evaluating right now. More reaction to feedback on ship's balance. We know there are several ships you want to be addressed, and we'd like to confirm. Balance changes are planned for ZOW, Petropavlovsk, and FDR in 0.10.10. Moving forward, we will try to increase the promptness of addressing release ships in a similar way, and when it is not possible, for example, changing a ship will move it out of the interval of normal performance, we will put more effort into giving you insights and explaining our reasoning. So for instance, rather than saying some ships are a little stronger, some ships are a little weaker, that is okay. That's intended. Not every ship is going to be bang on perfect in terms of win rate and average damage and all that shit. There's going to be some fluctuation. Everything's a little different. But rather than saying, well, it's within our normal interval and just leaving it at that, they might, hopefully they'll put a little more effort in and they'll give you some data or some concepts or whatever that they're operating. Try to open up and communicate more about well, as they said, why they're making decisions that they're making, which would be very nice. Always good to know more. Aircraft carriers. Despite many other things happening in the game, we haven't forgotten that there are still questions to be answered regarding CVs. We've implemented a lot of changes to this class since the rework, but we acknowledge more changes may be needed. CV spotting is a good example. We conducted several tests before and did not find a good, adequate way to address it. That does not mean we will not continue to improve it. It's not something that can be done quickly. Please keep that in mind. Another common question is regarding odd tier carriers, which were previously mentioned as support CVs. Right now, they are in early prototyping stage, developing document concepts, and we want to honestly tell you that they are not to be expected in 2022. Meaning they haven't figured out how to implement them, and they're busy doing other shit at the moment, so it ain't happening soon. New gameplay experiences. We will keep evolving the game by introducing new game modes and mechanics, both fiction and history-based. For example, in 0.10.8, we will have a new mode, Convoys, inspired by historical events. We will keep exploring new game modes in the future. It's one of our priorities. Expanding permanent types of battles, primarily random battles, with new modes is also one of the long-term goals to keep the game fresh and entertaining. However, creating a mode suitable, not just for a short gaming period, but for permanent presence with high replayability, is a much bigger challenge, so it takes many more tries and effort. Maps. We've slowed down with adding new maps to the game recently because the team focused more on game visuals in general, such as updated visual effects, new water, and other improvements, as well as introducing a whole new level of underwater world. That said, in 2022, at least one new map will be released. So it's not going to be released this year. And another one has some chances to make it in time. Spoiler, we're also going to try a new mechanic with the first one of these maps, not previously used in the game. And there was some other information released that they can't commit to say that a second map will definitely happen in 2022, but if it does, they would like to involve community feedback in terms of the setting. So, I don't know, maybe that means like, is it an ice setting or a Nordic setting? I don't know. But supposedly there might be a feedback process if they have the ability to incorporate that into the second map. Operations. CV rework rendered a lot of AI-related internal tools obsolete and made working with AI aircraft-related stuff very difficult or impossible. Right now we're in the process of removing this obstacle. It's been worked on for many reasons, not just for the sake of operations, but one of the benefits we will have when this project is done is that we'll be able to return some of the old operations in 2022. Something to note about this. They're not retooling AI so that they can bring back operations. They're not retooling AI so that they can incorporate new operations. They were retooling AI because when they incorporated the CV rework, they fucked up the ability to interact AI that they had, because the new version of the game was not very compatible with it. They did release an AI update 6 months to a year ago, something like that. They released an AI update. And I played, because I did testing on test ships, I played a lot of like tier 1, 2, and 3. And the tier 1 ships, the AI ships, I mean, yeah, they were AI ships, but it was actually it was a fun experience. It was an enjoyable experience. They didn't just YOLO forward and shoot. You know, they actually tried to move and maneuver and whatever. It's not like it was a high-base thing where they maneuvered together and employed tactics and shit, but it was an enjoyable situation where they were a ship and I was shooting at them and whatever. So they have been working on AI, and with all this stuff exploding off, I mean, operations get brought up. This is something. Where are the operations? What the fuck? Well, if they're working on this, and once this being the AI and related tools get fixed, and that could allow them to bring operations back, well, sure. So they can make an announcement regarding operations, and they did. But, you know, we've had it reaffirmed to us on the CC Discord, you know, when they were saying not a lot of people play operations. This is not a high priority for us. That's still true. That hasn't changed. And it's not just because operations were reduced. It was never a priority for them as of, well, the past long while now, because operations are a small part of the game. The game is primarily PvP in terms of random battles. And then every other mode, co-op, operations, even clan battles as a small subset of the population. It's good to have more things to do because otherwise people get bored, but it's still not something where if they sit down a bunch of designers and they start shitting out operations left and right, that suddenly this is going to become a whole new game with a whole new audience. There's no indicators to show that. It's just a different thing you can do. People don't play operations because you can't use them in tasks. That's not correct either. So they did try using, evidently at some point in the implementation cycle of operations, they did actually try to give away shit. You know, play operations and you get some flags, or you get some containers, or you get some kind of benefit or something. It didn't change it. It did not increase people's play of operations. Now, the North American server seems to have the highest operation percentage, but yeah, it's not just a matter of baiting people in to do it. People don't play this game for operations. On whole, most people play it to play a ship, derp around in random battles. That's like 90+% of the player base. Operations probably account for something like 1 to 4% of players that even really use them in any routine fashion. And throwing some containers at people is not going to suddenly change that. There are plenty of other things we know you're interested in, and quite a lot of them are being worked on in different stages of development. We haven't forgotten about things such as secondary builds for cruisers, the update of some old ship models, Tier 4 CV tuning, which I don't think there's a lot of work to do there. Huron coming in 2022, West Virginia 44 coming in 2023, addressing the chat system, which they did actually answer some questions about that, but it's still pretty generic. That's still, they're figuring shit out there. For what, I don't know, but they're doing it. Improvements for ranked battles, which I don't think they touched on that one either. And many other small and not so small changes on the game that will make your experience with it better. Communications. I will take some question and answer after I finish this. So if you do have questions, if you just want to hold on to them for a second, after I finish this, I'll take some QA and then I'm going to go eat. Communications. We are a large distributed team of over 500 people working across more than 4 countries, coming from all walks of life, culturally varied and hindered severely by the pandemic, from traveling to see each other in person and to be able to align on certain matters. We are bound to have organizational challenges in the realm of communication. However, these internal challenges should not be visible, meaning you as players should never have problems with this. They should not be visible, have much less influence on the player experience. Improving communications is a never-ending process which needs to be evolutionary and not revolutionary. So it just needs to become better, not somehow get reinvented into a whole new thing. So you will see those improvements incrementally over time in many areas rather than as a one-time institutional overnight change. But we want to address a few specific points that you pointed out in this area. Community Contributor Program. When we created our CCTP, which I still don't know what the fuck the T stands for, our goal was to help talented folks interested in our game create content and grow their channels. Right now, it's clear that a lot of things in the program do not work as they should, which leads to frustration and failed expectations, even though some other parts are running well. We will update the program, both in terms of rules and the way we work with it internally. We expect to have some sort of internal plan and first action points ready in the second half of September, and then proceed with the changes during this autumn. So, second half of September, 3 to 4 weeks. Future of the game. We'd like to offer you a deeper look into the future of the game. Right now we have dev blogs, which basically announce everything that comes to a super test, and the Waterline series, which are quarterly updates. To complement these and explain the horizon of events, we want to share a general roadmap with you of what you can expect to see in World of Warships in the far future. It will give you an idea of what we want to focus on, but please keep in mind that things can and will change. This is very important because this is the reason why they have not done this, is because they don't want people to freak out. It was on the roadmap and now it's not. Shit's going to change. Priorities are going to adjust. The world is going to be an evolving place. But please keep in mind that things can and will change. At the same time, we want to show the progress World of Warships achieves. The game evolves a lot each year, and it will make it easier for you to follow what we're doing. Communications quality. There have been a lot of communications mistakes and incidents on our side recently. While mistakes always happen, and we're all human, we acknowledge that we need to improve in this area. We've already launched a full internal review of all related processes. We want fewer mistakes and translation errors, more answers, and productive conversations. We want to improve the way you interact with us in any place, be it forums, community customer support, Discord servers, or official streams. General transparency. We need to work hard on it. On the one hand, we need to pay more attention to the community sentiment. On the other hand, we have to be more transparent and explain our positions. We will create a series of publications to make our development process more transparent and to show the logic behind what we do. For example, players did not understand why the latest torpedo bug took 2 updates to fix, while the CV bug, plane losses in 0.9.9, was fixed almost instantly. They are in fact very different. The CV bug was fixed by quickly adjusting some parameters, while the torpedo bug involved game logic, i.e. code. And even though it was technically fixed within a week, it had to go through all regular quality assurance processes. Deploying such a change through a hotfix is extremely risky for the game. This should have been communicated transparently, and we will do our best to do so in the future. Yeah, so if they deployed it through a hotfix and it just broke other shit in the game, then that's bad. That's all kinds of no bueno. So, can't do that. In-depth communications and insights. When it's necessary, we will use more specifics and will provide deeper explanations of our decisions. For example, we implemented the system for clan vs. clan ship bans, which helps us to keep the meta fresh, and we want to tell you more about how and why we use it, as it's something that our hardcore players are interested in. All of it is just our current first plan. We will keep looking for other points of interest and challenges. We want to show you our responsibility, care, and desire for the game by the way we communicate and through our actions, to make the game better for everyone. A final word on passion and communication. While we're working hard to improve the way we communicate and interact with you, we want to take a moment to address your passion and the way we communicate with each other. We know that you care about the game a great deal and ask you to remember that there are people, community managers, support staff, developers, and volunteers that read your communications and posts wherever they may be made. While we as a company certainly need to work on the way we communicate with you, we ask that you treat the people you interact with fairly and with respect. Your voice will carry as much or more weight with them if you present your feedback and opinions in a reasoned and constructive way. You are sincerely, not going to butcher the names, Publishing Director and Development Director, World of Warships team. So, alright, so at this point, we've read the thing. I'm going to take a few questions from chat. Alright, so I answered this, I know. People don't play operations because you can't use them in tasks. That's not always the case. But still, they did actually, they introduced rewards for playing them, and yet people did not care. Because it's not the experience they wanted. Maybe if it was more cinematic, maybe if it was more like a single-player experience, where if you play like Call of Duty, you know, there's explosions, and it's an immersive experience, whereas operations is more like, there's stuff that happens, and there's a weird voice actor that, oh no, ships are coming in on the left! Like, it's not an immersive experience. So, operations only give one-time rewards. I don't know what that means. What I'm trying to say is that I was told that there was a time before where they tried to give incentive to play operations. Like, hey, if you play operations, here's some stuff. And it just did not significantly make people care about it. If they created it, I think if they created it to make it like a more emotional, tied in kind of like cinematic experience, it would be different. But as it is, it's just a really basic implementation of, you're in some ships, you're going from point A to point B, some bad guys show up, and you get a weird voiceover going like, oh no, it's over there. And it's not immersive, but it is nicer than co-op. Co-op is just incredibly straightforward, whereas operations have more of a dynamic feel to them. Could they address it? Could they make them better? Absolutely. But you also have to consider how much developer time would have to go in to making a cinematic, immersive experience as opposed to a different way to co-op, which is humans versus bots. The problem is that the rewards you can obtain just once. The rest of the time you play, you don't get anything interesting. No, you still get rewards. Oh, you're talking about like some flags and stuff. No, well, you don't get rewards just for playing random battles. I mean, yes, there's a lot of stuff that or tasks and whatever that can be associated with random battles, but in general, you play random battles, you earn some experience, you earn some free XP, you earn some commander XP, you get some credits. It's the same shit with the operations. You earn free XP, you earn commander XP, you earn normal XP, you get credits. So that's all normal. The question is, what do you get above and beyond? And it's like, operations were not found to be sufficient or noticeably like enhanced by adding, a carrot. It just, people didn't care. You would prefer to play operations for Dutch cruiser stuff, but you cannot. You could play tier 6 and tier 7 cruisers in there. I think there's a tier 8 Operation Cherry Blossom, I heard, that I guess whenever that comes back, you'll have a tier 8. See, the T is team. Community contributor. Oh, yeah, RAR. Okay. Had the same question given that was the answer thing. Community contributor team program? Still seems strange. Standard rewards. You do. You get credits, commander XP, all that shit. It's because it gets really repetitive. Well, so is co-op. Co-op's extremely repetitive. They're enemy ships, they go forward, and you go forward and then you shoot them. Co-op is pretty repetitive too. It's you have to understand, like, you have to understand that if I get a Call of Duty game, if I go out there, I have a single player game. Hell, I could even play co-op. I could play it with a friend. That there's going to be really dynamic voice work. There's going to be really beautiful images. There's going to be impactful events that occur. There's going to be a story to it. There's going to be all this stuff that's going to be slammed into a small window of time. And they're going to have done that not just once, but hundreds, if not thousands of times over the course of your 10 to 20 hour play experience. Probably hundreds of times. Thousands is probably a lot. And you have to understand that in order to create a AAA title, not only are they creating, some explosion sound, some sound effects and some explosions and shit like that, but they're quite literally building a movie for you to sink yourself into and live yourself through the movie. And if you think that it's going to be extremely profitable for the World of Warships guys to sit down and program and create sound assets for, and create art for, and create story for, an operation that's going to be used by between 1% to 4% of the populace, I mean, it's just, you're not getting returns for that. That's like instead of having more people working inside the store, you send them out into the back to trim, pull weeds and shit. Nobody's looking back there. Well, somebody might walk behind the store. Yeah, but most people aren't. They're just going to come in the front and buy shit. So why would you have people go do something that most people have no interaction with at all? You could say that if they put all of this time in and they made operations this immersive, amazing experience, that'd be great. But you have to think of it like World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft is an MMO. You have entire teams that create one dungeon that's going to take several months. They come up with one dungeon, you get to play it. It's cool the first time. It's cool the next 20 to 25 times, and then people don't want to go there anymore because they've done it. And now you have to come up with an entire new dungeon. And then you have to come up with an entire new dungeon. And then you have to come up with an entire new dungeon. It's much better to just have a situation where the game is going to kind of alter itself and just be itself. And operations are frankly pretty low effort. There's some really basic AI. There's some enemy ships that spawn, and there's, oh no, off on the left side, there's bad guys coming. Like, there's some really basic voice work, and here you go. Here's a thing you can do. Okay, it's a little low effort, but it works because it's something different, and you don't have to do it. So it's, it's a little extra spice, right? But I don't think there's any chance in hell that operations are going to somehow become like the major game mode of this game, which means primarily they're always going to be looking at how do they introduce ships and situations for random battles, because that's the gig, that's the game. Use the current dockyard event, no tasks. Use the current dockyard event. To put the... Well, the dockyard event is actually a problem in terms of, like, if you look at kills. Because in a co-op environment, there's a certain amount of kills you might be expected to get. In a random battle environment, there's a certain amount of kills you might be expected to get. There's also, there might be an amount of damage you'd be expected to get. However, if you play in Atlanta in what is it, Operation Narai, you could easily hit 200,000 damage every single game, potentially going up to 300 to 350,000 damage. So if you're farming damage, you could do that in Narai, and you could go through the battles twice as quickly. If you're farming kills, you could easily get 11 to 13 kills per operation. So the kills would be fucked up. In terms of torpedoes, you have so many different ships to interact in so many different ways that you'll have people that'll figure out how they can just run around torping everything and slaughtering shit. Like, also, you have to understand that the game is random battle. It is. They've made concessions to add co-op in the tasks and other shit, because there are people that they only play co-op and they'd like to be included in the, you know, the big game events, right? So if you've got this cool dockyard thing, if you've got this cool whatever, but all you really do is play co-op because you don't like player versus player experiences, okay, there's that. But if you include operations where suddenly you can get 12 or 15 kills, you can start getting stupid amounts of damage, you can torp everything under the fucking sun because you know where it spawns, so you just go there and then you murder it with torpedoes, you start to skew these tasks. I mean, it fucks with the numbers. And plus, I mean, the incentive is if players are playing randoms and co-ops, then the queue times are faster because you have players to interact with. You're not sitting there waiting for something to happen. So, I mean, I don't think it's awkward that the tasks and shit for the dockyard and other things encourage people to play popular modes, because that keeps them popular. Hey, Groovy Feet. Operations are often longer and give less experience, so they are not as interesting in terms of rewards. See, I can't necessarily agree with this, only because what an operation can do is provide you a player versus AI experience that is consistent. So for instance, when I was farming free XP and I used all sorts of special flags, I got the Atlanta specifically for Narai, and I knew a route that I could take where I would get 200 to 240,000 damage every single time. I had very little risk of death, and I could run the special spring sky camo or something, which gives bonus free XP, and I could run all of the special signals, and I could routinely get 23 to 2600 base XP every single time, over and over and over again. So if I could do that in Narai and know that I could do it every single time without any risk to myself or the fact that I'm showing up with all these special things, why the fuck wouldn't I? Why would I not use that to give me guaranteed returns? And I did. It gave me 17,000 free XP. Wait, 30,000? It's been a while. I think it was like 30,000 free XP actually, with Spring Sky and all that shit. Like 34, 32, 34,000 free XP. So you could do Narai 10 times and have a third of a million free XP. If you have the flags for it, you just do it 10 times, which is basically three times an hour. So it's a little over 3 hours, but I mean, if you wanted to farm the small end, for instance, you could do that in 18 hours, which still a lot of time. I'm not going to lie there. But if you do it in a random battle, how often do you get 2,500 base XP? How often? Once a week? 1 out of 40 games? 1 out of 20 games? But you could do it every single game in Narai. So, like, you have to understand, when you have player versus bots, and the player can consistently, repeatedly use the bot AI, the very basic experience, to give himself an amazing experience, well then, you can't balance tasks around that. That'd be fucking stupid. In order to balance tasks around the amount of damage numbers you would have to do expecting people to be in operations would be, like, obnoxiously obscene in a random battle environment. Um, make that 30 cash. 17 is fairly doable in a Scharnhorst 200k game with not the best camo. Yeah, I think it was in the 30s. I think it was 32 to 36,000 free XP. And free XP is the hardest resource to get in the game through playing. Coal is gated, steel is gated, sure, but through actual play interactions, free XP is 5% of the XP that you earn, and that's it. So it's like you can use all these flags and stuff to buff it up and buff it up and buff it up, but I mean, it's... Anyway. All right, so I don't see any other Q&A stuff. So if anybody else has a question to ask, you got like 30 seconds. Otherwise, I'm going to submit an order to Domino's and go get me, what is it? Ugh. I can't think of it. No! It's pasta, and I can't remember what it's called. Anyway. It's like a cheese pasta with chicken. Anyway, so I'm going to get that and also a thin crust pizza, because I can kind of nibble on it over the cost of a day. That's a very niche example. You don't think people want to play the same ship 10,000 times to get free XP or whatever. This is correct. However, you have to understand that okay, here, let's do this. Let's do this. So I stream on Twitch. I'm known for my carrier play. And I believe, according to the Asian server, I'm in the top, basically, 0.3 percentile of the game. So you'll have people that see Eraser, you'll have people that see other Unicoms and Super Unicum players. So let's do this. So at any given time, I think there were, what, 150,000 active accounts in Asia. So if we just kind of extrapolate that across the rest of the world, we probably have about 400,000 active player accounts at any given time in World of Warships. And people want to balance this game around 0.0. If I put a 1 here, that would be 1%. So not that. 3% of the game. Which means out of 400,000 active players, the player base in general that is concerned about high-level play, it wants to balance the game around the top 1,200 players in the world. So if people look at, well, a Super Unicum can use a CV and they can run around and they can kill stuff and they can do this and that, all right, it's unbalanced, it's OP. Because 1,200 people in the world are capable of pulling that shit off, then how do you not see this as an issue? Because there will be, out of 400,000 people, probably more than 1,000 people that will understand, hey, I can exploit this and I can get incredibly strong, incredibly consistent numbers and do that. Because there will. You don't even have to be Super Unicum to get those numbers. You can just be a person that learns the pattern and then you do it. Just like on an old Nintendo game. You know, you do things in a certain way and you win. I would say, thank you, go get your pizza. Sure. But yeah, like, this number is staggeringly small compared to something that is very, very large, but it is what it is. So, yeah, you have to balance around outliers, especially because people will learn, oh, hey, just do this, dude. And then, oh, okay, I did that and it worked really well. And if you're against AI bots, you don't have to be Super Unicum. You just have to show up and shoot things. As long as somebody shows you how to do it or makes a YouTube video, you just copy them. Alrighty, so thank you very much for hanging out. We did get to watch the WoW's Q&A stream, and that finished, so I stopped. We did kind of talk about a CV question and then go over this, but yeehaw. So I'm gonna go get some food. I hope y'all have a good one. Peace.